The last thing Captain Dax Riven remembered was the explosion. A plasma shell had ruptured the hull of the supply freighter he was escorting, hurling his ship into a spin. The emergency beacon had gone out with the first system's failure, and by the time the oxygen dropped to dangerous levels, all he could do was whisper a silent goodbye to the stars. But death never came. Instead, warmth, then light, then dash her. His eyelids cracked open slowly, the unfamiliar scent of sterile blossoms flooding his nose. Not earth air, not even military-grade oxygen. Something far more refined, sweeter, more intimate. Good, you're waking. The voice was feminine, but not human. Not exactly. There was softness in the tone, but strength beneath it like velvet sheathing steel. Dax blinked fully awake, and found himself staring at a tall, iridescent figure lithe, pale lavender skin glowing under soft firelights, and eyes like liquid onyx rimmed in gold. "You rescued me," he croaked. She smiled, slow and devastating. "You were barely breathing when I found you. Your vitals were collapsing. So I did what I had to." He tried to sit up, but his muscles trembled and failed. A soft pressure held him down a hand, graceful yet firm, resting gently on his chest. "Easy," she whispered. "You're not ready for exertion." "Where am I?" "You're on my vessel. I'm called Sector 9 Medic. You crossed into Alarian space when your ship disintegrated. Your people don't usually survive past our borders." She leaned closer. The scent of her skin was heady alien, yet somehow comforting. "But you did. Because I chose to save you." The words stirred something primal in him. He noticed then that his body was encased in some kind of translucent biofilm. It pulsed with his heartbeat, and a soft warmth pooled in his lower belly. The sensation was strangely arousing. "What is this?" Valora tilted her head. "You suffered neural shock. Our standard regeneratives weren't enough. Kind needs stimulation, motive, tactile, hormonal, to re-anchor the soul during a collapse. So I used the pleasure serum." His breath hitched. "You drugged me, I healed you," she corrected. "Through methods your science hasn't dared classify." Dax swallowed hard. The serum's lingering effects rolled through his system, like tides tingling, craving, igniting something he hadn't felt in months, a need deeper than hunger. His body responded, despite the haze of recovery. She noticed Valora's eyes flicked downward, her gaze lingering just long enough to draw heat to his cheeks. But instead of pulling away, she leaned closer, her voice low and almost possessive. "You're mine now, human." His heart pounded at her words. There was no threat in her tonally certainty, like he was a claim she had marked and would protect at all costs. The HFY Sci-Fi Erotica fantasy he'd heard whispered among the soldiers, the dream of being claimed by a superior alien, was suddenly dangerously real. "You saved me," he said, not knowing what else to offer. "I did," she murmured, "but not without sacrifice. My serum was untested on your kind. I risked my body, and more." He blinked. "Your body," she nodded slowly. "My blood is bonded to the serum. It passes not only biochemicals, but intimacy." She stood, revealing the full grace of her form beneath a diaphanous medical robe. Curves, soft yet firm, her figure both nurturing and dominant. "You carry part of me now." The room spun slightly, whether from the revelation or the lingering effects of the serum, he couldn't tell. "I don't understand," Dax whispered. "You will," she replied, stepping close again. Let me show you. She placed her hand over his heart, and something pulsed between them. The biofilm around his body retracted slowly as she spoke a word in her native tongues, something ancient and silken, like a prayer. She knelt beside the table, her eyes never leaving his. This wasn't just medical care, it was ritual, a union of biology and desire, a power reversal romance where he was no longer the soldier, the protector, but the one being shielded, cherished, and slowly claimed. He reached up, his fingers grazing her cheek. "Why me?" she answered with a smile that could disarm planets. "Because you didn't cry out, you didn't beg to be saved, you simply endured. I value resilience." Their hands met. On warmth, and Dax realized the healing wasn't just physical. This was a sacrificed hero romance, and he was the offering, one she intended to keep. Dax's pulse quickened as Valara's hand remained over his chest, her fingertips brushing against his bare skin. The biofilm had fully receded, leaving him exposed beneath her intense, intelligent gaze. His body, still weak, trembled under the weight of sensation, not fear, not pain, but something deeper, something primal. Her touch wasn't clinical. It was claiming. "I thought I was dying," he murmured, watching her eyes trace his form like she was reading. A language etched across his body. "You were," she said, softly. "Your brainwaves were collapsing. Your heart had slowed to barely a flutter. I had one choice, and I made it. And the pleasure serum." Her lips curved. "Your kind heals through stimulation. Skin, mind, hormone. I used my own bioserum, engineered from my core fluids, intimate compounds only our high-order nurses can produce. It was the only way to pull you back." His breath caught. He didn't need the translation. What she meant by core fluids was written in the heat, rising between them. This was more than medical. It was intentional. Intimate, alien nurse erotica had always seemed like a fantasy piped through whispered comes between lonely soldiers. But now Dax was living it. An alien nurse had given her essence to him, not just to revive his heart, but to awaken something buried inside him. "You said I carry a part of you now," he said, voice low. "What does that mean?" She sat beside him on the edge of the medical slab, one hand resting on her thigh. "In Alarian healing, especially through deep serum exchange, there's a bond. My essence inside you tunes to your rhythms. You dream. Me, you ache where I ache. We're linked now, at least. Temporarily. How temporary?" "That depends," she whispered, leaning close. Her scent invaded him, again warm starlight and electric skin. "If we complete the bond, it becomes permanent." "What does that involve?" he asked, even though his body already knew. It wanted to know. It ached to know. Valara didn't answer with words. Instead, she leaned down, brushing her lips over his neck, just beneath his ear. His body arched toward the heat of her breath, and she chuckled softly against him. "You're responding faster than I anticipated. Your species. So emotionally driven. You don't do this with every rescue." "No," she said firmly. "I don't usually risk a medic's sacred serum on a stranger. But you," her fingers traced a line down his ribs. "You were different. You didn't scream. You didn't panic. You drifted into death quietly, with dignity. And you liked that." "I admired it," she replied, "and I was drawn to it. You reminded me of a soldier I once failed to save. This time, I didn't fail." He swallowed thickly. This was no longer just a rescue. It was the beginning of an intergalactic love story, one born not from fate, but from need. From a nurse who risked her own sacred biology for a dying human. She tilted his face toward hers. Tell me, Dax Riven, do you want to live? I thought I already was, he breathed. Her lips grazed his. Not yet. But you're close. Then her mouth claimed his, fully soft, firm, exploratory. A kiss not of lust alone, but of connection. His fingers curled into the fabric of her robe, drawing her down to him. Their chests touched, skin to skin, pulse to pulse. The contact was electric. Valora's body shifted over him, slow, deliberate. Every move was a study in dominance and grace. She straddled his hips, the thin barrier of her medical robe doing little to conceal the heat between them. Her skin shimmered, her core heat sinking with his, and Dax gasped as the sensation rolled over him again. You're healing, she murmured into his mouth, but you're not whole yet. Make me whole, then. She smiled, gladly. This was no longer her duty, it was her choice, and his surrender. The power reversal romance unfolded in silence as Valora guided him through something more than medical, more than erotica. Was renewal. His pain, his memories of war, his loneliness all melted beneath her touch. She read his needs without words, answered each one with reverence, and when he cried out softly into her shoulder, it wasn't from climax, it was from release, from finally being seen, touched, held. Afterward, she lay beside him, one arm draped across his chest. Now, she whispered, brushing her lips against his skin, you're mine in more than name. The room pulsed with gentle light as the ship moved through space, and Dax Riven, once presumed dead, lay reborn in the arms of the alien who had not only revived his body but awakened his soul, and it was only the beginning. Dax awoke to silence, except for the soft hum of the ship's systems and the steady rhythm of breathing beside him. Not his own, hers. Valora. She lay close, her arm draped across his torso like a protective wing. Her bare skin shimmered faintly in the low light, her body pressed against his with a possessiveness that should have felt foreign, but didn't. Instead, it felt right, as if his body had always been designed to fit beneath hers. He turned his head, studying the alien nurse who had risked everything to bring him back. Her breathing was steady, her expression peaceful, but even in sleep, there was power coiled in her muscles. He could feel it in her arm across his chest, in the faint flex of her thigh against his hip. She was a healer, but not soft. She was strength wrapped in sensual biology. He reached up to brush a strand of her silken hair from her cheek. She stirred immediately, eyes blinking open, catching his gaze with uncanny precision. You're watching me, she said. You saved me, he replied softly. Twice now, Valora smiled, and you accepted the bond. I didn't know what I was saying yes to. You didn't need to, she said, voice low and intimate. Your body did. He hesitated. Is that how it works in Alarian culture? You touch a man, heal him with your serum, and then just claim him. A soft laugh escaped her throat. Only if he lives. And only if he wants to be claimed. She slid her body upward, her weight sinking gently into him, not crushing, possessing. Do you want to be claimed, Dax Riven? Every nerve in his body already knew the answer, but he forced himself to speak it aloud. Yes. The word made her smile again, but this time there was something different behind it. Something tender. She touched his face gently, thumb grazing his lips. Then I won't let you go. The moment stretched between them, deeper than any battlefield loyalty or mission bond. This was a human-alien romance, forged in trauma, kindled through biology and sealed through skin. I don't understand what's happening to me, Dax admitted. I've fought through hell. I've buried friends. I've been alone for years. And yet, after one night with you, I feel more alive than I ever did in all those battles. You were bred to endure, not to feel, she said gently. But you are feeling now. That is what the bond awakens. Emotion, memory, purpose. He swallowed. It's overwhelming. Good, she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. Let it overwhelm you. Let it reprogram you. Dax felt a flutter deep inside. This was more than passion. It was transformation. She moved down his body then, trailing her fingers across his chest, his abdomen, his hips until her lips replaced her touch. She explored him again, but slower this time, more ritual than impulse. She nursed his arousal like it was part of the healing process, coaxing him into surrender with every breath. His hands gripped the bedding, his mind unraveling in the haze of her ministrations. It was alien nurse erotica, but it felt sacred, like worship. And when she climbed atop him once more, it wasn't to dominate, it was to complete him. Your body is remembering me now, she murmured as she rocked into him. The serum left its imprint. You'll never want another touch again. And God's help him, she was right. His release came like a wave through his soul, not just pleasure, but relief. His trauma, his loss, his guilt, they fled from her warmth. And when he collapsed beneath her, panting and trembling, she held him like something precious, something rare. You gave me your life, she whispered against his skin, and I gave you mine. They lay tangled for hours in the post-storm. Calm, there were no come signals, no war briefings, no survival checklists. Just the two of them, bonded by the serum, the sex, and something deeper, a sacrificed hero romance, born from blood and rebirth. You've changed me, he finally said. You're not done changing, she replied. There's more to come. More healing, more surrender. I want it, he said. She nodded. Then I'll show you what comes after desire. There was a shimmer in her eyes then. Something deeper than lust. Devotion, protection, ownership, and Dax, instead of resisting it, leaned into the weight of her presence, the comfort of being hers. For the first time since the war began, he didn't feel like a weapon. He felt like a man, and Valera, the alien who injected him with pleasure and claimed him with love, was his anchor in a galaxy that had otherwise forgotten him. This wasn't just sex, this was survival. This was a power reversal romance at its core, and it had only just begun. The corridor outside the medical chamber was silent, save for the quiet hum of Valera's shipper sound that now felt like a heartbeat Dax could rest within. He stood beside the observation panel, clothed in a loose robe she'd given him. Though the fabric clung awkwardly to his still sensitive skin, as if his body hadn't decided if it was fully his anymore, or still part of hers. Behind him, Valera stepped into the room with the same fluid grace that made him ache to be touched again. She hadn't put on more clothing, only adjusted the sheer wrap around her hips. The lines of her body shimmered in the sterile glow, alien and beautiful. And hers wasn't the body of a savior, it was that of a queen. One who knew how to heal and how to command. You shouldn't be on your feet, she said softly. I'm not just standing, he murmured. I'm waiting. Her lips curled. For me, for the truth. She came closer, each step, slow and precise, like a predator circling prey, but one that had already claimed its kill. I gave you the serum, she said, stopping just short of touching him. But I didn't expect your human body to take to it so completely. You mean I wasn't supposed to crave you? You weren't supposed to bond this deeply. The neural threads your species isn't compatible. But your cells didn't resist. They opened to you. To my milk, she said, and he flushed. She stepped closer, lifting his hand and placing it against her warm, full breast. He could feel her heartbeat thrum beneath his palm. Do you feel that? Your pulse syncing with mine. The serum never left you. It flows in you now, and what does that make me? A vessel of my essence, she whispered. And if we complete the connection, you'll never survive without me again. Dax's throat tightened. His fingers flexed against her breast. He felt it, the pressure, the swell of heat. Her skin was damp with warmth, and he swore she pulsed under his touch. I've heard rumors, he said hoarsely, about the Ilarian nurses, that their milk can restore life, that it feeds more than the body. It nourishes, she said. It remakes. This is real, he whispered. She reached behind her neck and let her robe fall to the floor. Her body was luminous in the glow of the ship's biolights. She didn't cover herself. She offered herself. You need another dose, she said, stepping forward until her chest brushed his lips. Not just for healing, for bonding, for memory. I feel fine, he said, voice shaky. But you don't remember what was lost. Before I brought you back, she murmured. You died, Dax. Part of you stayed there. Let me give it back. He hesitated for only a breath. Then, slowly, reverently, he closed his mouth around her. The moment was not erotic in the usual sense, it was elemental. Her warmth flooded into him, thick and sweet and overwhelming. A rush of images crashed into his mind, flashes of his ship, of the explosion of cold darkness. Then her hands, her lips, her voice whispering commands into the dark as she pumped his chest and cried out in a tongue he didn't know. And beneath all of it, a tether, her dot. He drank deeper. Her hands threaded through his hair, her breathing roughened. Yes, she gasped. Take it all, take me. This was no longer recovery. This was rebirth. The alien lactation fantasy he'd dismissed as myth was real, pulsing down his throat and rewiring his soul. Every part of him responded, hard, aching, possessed. His cock throbbed against the robe, and she noticed, pressing her hips into his as he drank. She guided him, not with dominance, but with sacred purpose, and when he finally released her, she held him upright as his knees threatened to give. You feel it now, she whispered. I remember everything, he said. The pain, the loneliness, the moment I gave up, and now, I never want to be without you again. Her eyes darkened with something deeper than lust, then kneel. He dropped slowly to his knees. Say it, she commanded. I'm yours. She stepped forward until her warmth hovered over his mouth again. Then drink again, as my bondmate. And he obeyed. This was no longer just HFY Sci-Fi Erotica. This was transformation. This was a sacrificed hero romance. And he was the offering taken willingly. His humanity, once carved in war and solitude, now bloomed with alien devotion. When she finally lifted him from the floor and carried him back to the bed, he didn't protest the strength in her arms. The power reversal romance was complete. She had saved his life, his mind, and now his purpose. He was hers, and he wanted more. Dax lay cradled in Valara's arms, the low hum of her ship blending with the lingering throb in his body. His skin still tingled where her milk had entered him nourishment. Yes, but also something more. It coursed through his veins like purpose, like belonging, like he was no longer a man drifting through the galaxy, but a soul anchored. Valora brushed her lips over his temple. You're stabilizing. Your neural patterns are syncing with mine. I can feel you in my mind. He murmured, you always could. The serum only made the bond clearer, stronger. She kissed his neck now, her breath warm, her voice a whisper inside his blood. You're not human anymore, not fully. A shiver ran down his spine, not from fear but anticipation. Then what am I? He asked. She drew back just enough to meet his eyes. You're mine. Her words carried weight beyond the moment. They were truth, declaration, vow. Valora stood slowly, her body stretching with unhurried grace. Every curve, every muscle sang with power, sensual but sovereign. She turned to him, her expression calm and commanding. Stand. He rose without hesitation. This was no longer war protocol, no military chain of command. But still, he obeyed like a soldier would a queen. His queen. He stood before her, bare and open, the evidence of his desire full and visible between them. Valora moved behind him, her fingers brushing his shoulders, then down the length of his spine. He trembled. You gave your life for others once, she said. You were thrown away by your people. I was just another name on a report, but I saw you, she whispered. I chose you. This is no longer about healing. This is about claiming. Her hand wrapped around him from behind, stroking slowly, deliberately, as she pressed her body to his back. Her breasts molded to his skin, warm and full against the sharp curve of his shoulder blades. You belong to me now. Say it. I belong to you, he gasped. She turned him to face her, and he saw Itra emotion glimmering beneath her strength. Not just possession, not just hunger. Love, alien, yes but true. She guided him to the reclined platform at the center of the chamber, laying him down with reverent precision. She climbed atop him, straddling his hips, and lowered herself slowly, inch by inch, her breath catching with each movement. Their eyes never broke contact. Do you feel it? She asked, her voice hoarse. The convergence. Yes, he breathed. You're inside me already. Now I'm around you, she whispered. It wasn't a climax that came next. That was communion. Her body moved over his in slow, hypnotic waves. Every thrust was a silent promise, every moan a binding thread. The serum's memory still lingered. Between them, amplifying sensation, tying nerve to nerve, heart to heart. He could feel her heartbeat inside his own chest. He could feel his pleasure ripple back through her, like two bodies sharing a single fire. Their connection had evolved beyond biology. This was HFY Sci-Fi Erotica turned divine. It was alien nurse erotica as sacred ritual. It was intergalactic. Love story woven in sweat and gasps and whispered names. And when they reached release together, shaking, clinging, crying out, it wasn't just physical, it was cosmic. Dax stared at the ceiling, eyes unfocused, breath ragged. What now? Vel curled into him, lips brushing his throat. Now we leave this sector. He blinked. Leave. There are those who would punish me for saving you this way. Alarian law forbids bonding with your kind. They fear contamination, emotional erosion, then they're fools. They are, she agreed, but they are powerful. Will have to vanish. He didn't hesitate. I'll go with you. You don't even know where. He turned to her fully, cupping her cheek in his palm. I don't care. My world discarded me. You rebuilt me, I'm yours. The way she looked at him, utterly vulnerable and fiercely protective, proved what he already knew. She had sacrificed everything to save him. Not just her body, not just her command, but her future. It was the ultimate sacrificed hero romance. But not just his story, any more hers too. They were both outlaws now, both reborn, and both impossibly, irrevocably bonded as the ship broke orbit, and the stars stretched long and thin across the viewport. Dax reached for her hand. I don't know where we're going, he said, but you're not afraid? She asked. No, he replied. I'm finally alive. And as her thumb brushed over the mark on his chest, the place she had injected life into, him with pleasure, he felt it spark again. Not just the serum, not just her milk, but her love, and it would sustain him forever. The stars streaked like silver rivers across the black void as Valera's vessel moved beyond the Alarian border. Dax stood at the front of the observation chamber, gazing out into that vast unknown, a place that once promised only war or death, now humming with possibility. Behind him, he could feel her, not just through sound or presence, but through the bond that pulsed beneath his skin. Her essence lingered in his blood like an echo of her touch, warm and possessive. His fingers flexed unconsciously, craving her again. She's watching you, Valera said from the threshold, her voice low and sultry. Dax turned, confused. Who? Valera entered the room, wrapped in a different robe, now this one darker, ceremonial, etched with glowing script across her collarbone and hips. The ship, she said. She's semi-sentient. Illyrian vessels sync with the pilot's emotional core. She knows I've bonded, and she's curious. He chuckled softly, the laugh dry in his throat. So she saw all of that. She felt it, Valera corrected, walking toward him, and she approved. Dax took her in as she approached, taller than him by a few inches, fluid in motion, glowing faintly in the soft lighting. Her scent already curled around his senses like a drug. He reached for her before he even realized it. She stopped him with a single raised hand. You're eager, she said. He gave a breathless nod. But I'm not ready, she added. He blinked. You're not. Her eyes narrowed, a teasing glint. Flickering there, no, you're not. He opened his mouth to protest, but she was already circling him, slow, predatory, deliberate. You think because you bonded with me, drank from me, took me into you, that you're in control now. His breath hitched. I've let you taste me, she continued, trailing a single finger down his spine. But you haven't learned restraint, discipline, devotion. He felt her presence at his back again, this time with more force. Her hands grasped his wrists and guided them to the wall, pressing them there with a strength that surprised him. Her lips brushed the shell of his ear. Tonight, she whispered, I claim you fully. His heart pounded, more than before. She exhaled, her breath hot against his neck. I'll use every part of you, and when I'm done, there'll be no doubt. You'll never want another being again. You'll never be anything except mine. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And Dax, helpless to the pulse of his body, nodded. She brought her arm around him, and this time he didn't resist as she slipped the robe from his shoulders. He stood nude again in the ship's warmth, his arousal already visible, throbbing, aching. She leaned forward, letting her breasts press to his back as she whispered words in Illyrian that sent shivers down his spine. Then came the restraint. Soft bands emerged from the wall, formed of living bioweave. They wrapped around his wrists and ankles, locking him gently in place, not painfully lovingly, like the ship itself wanted him to surrender. He gasped, "You're restraining me." Her lips brushed his cheek. "This is power reversal romance, Dax. You gave your body, now give your will." The room dimmed. She stepped in front of him, the robe falling completely from her shoulders. She knelt between his legs, eyes fixed on his as her mouth descended. It wasn't just pleasure, it was worship. She used her tongue like a language, her lips like a vow. His body trembled against the restraints, his moans echoing in the silent chamber, and the ship sensing it all glowed brighter in rhythm with their heartbeat. Every pulse of her mouth was answered by a groan from his soul, and when he neared the edge, she stopped. She rose, she kissed his lips again, letting him taste himself there. "Not yet," she said softly. "You come when I say." Her fingers stroked down his chest, mapping the shape of the human she'd saved, rebuilt, made hers. She mounted him again, but this time with agonizing slowness. Her hands rested on his chest, fingers pressing into his heart, his breath catching as she sank down. He arched. The restraints held him in place, able to thrust, to take control. His entire existence reduced to a single truth. He belonged to her. She moved with languid rhythm, her eyes locked to his, her body glowing with the heat of their union. And, as he broke, his climax shattering every thought, he cried her name, Valera, like it was the only word left in the universe. She released his bindings only after he collapsed forward into her arms, trembling, undone. "You endured," she whispered. "You surrendered." Dax, breathless, kissed her shoulder. "I'd die for you." "You already did," she replied. "And now you live for me." They stayed like that, entwined, skin to skin, soul to soul. The bond between them no longer needed explanation. It simply was. A human-alien romance carved in trust, in passion, in submission and strength. He hadn't just been healed, he'd been remade, and Valerohi's nurse, his lover, his queen, wasn't done with him yet. Dax awoke to silence, but it wasn't the silence of emptiness. It was the quiet that follows something sacred. His body still pulsed from the night before. Every nerve hummed with the memory of her mouth, her heat, her voice commanding, caressing. Consuming Valera was sitting across the room now, bare legs crossed, a thin thread of glowing mist trailing from her collarbone to her navel. Meditative, regal, alien. He propped himself up slowly, muscles weak and satisfied. "You look like a goddess." She opened her eyes and smiled. "I feel like one, now that you're mine." The words no longer startled him. They felt inevitable. "True, you made me beg," he said, voice raspy. "I made you feel." She rose and came to him, straddling his lap with the ease of a ruler returning to her throne. "That's the part your kind never understands. You worship power, conquest, control, but true strength is surrender, and you wanted mine. I needed it," she murmured. "Your human spark, your refusal to break, even at the edge of death. I've touched hundreds of lives, but only yours clung to me in the serum. Only yours whispered back when I poured myself into your dying body." He reached for her hips, grounding himself in the warmth of her. Then this wasn't just healing. No. Her forehead pressed against his. It was bonding, a sacrificed. Hero romance, you gave everything in war, and now I give you peace. "Is that what this is?" he asked, half laughing, half awed. "Peace," she smirked. "Not yet. First, there is one final ritual." He stiffened slightly. What kind of ritual? A sacred Alarian rite, she whispered, lifting herself from him and walking toward the glowing platform that now hovered. Mid-room, a union not just of bodies, but of cores. The platform pulsed as she touched it. It unfolded, revealing two shallow grooves large enough for them to lie in, side by side. Above it hovered a silver coil, faintly vibrating with energy. "You want to link our life forces?" he asked. "It will join your soul to mine," she said, "permanently. Your heartbeat will echo through mine for the rest of our days. That's forever, yes." She turned to face him fully. "You're already halfway there, Dax. My milk is in you, my essence, my mind. All that remains is your consent." He didn't hesitate. "Do it." She smiled, proud and reverent. Together, they lay on the platform, bodies aligned, fingers laced. The coil above began to descend. Warm, silken threads of energy unraveled over their skin. The serum within him responded, heating in his veins. His mind bloomed with visions, her childhood among the starflowers of Alaria, her training as a healer, the lives she couldn't save, the moment she found him drifting in space, nearly lifeless, the way her heart had screamed when she thought she was too late, and then his memories flowed back. His first kill, his last command, the bitterness of being discarded by his own commanders. The moment of silence in the void, when he accepted death until her voice shattered the dark. Their minds overlapped, emotions entwined. When he cried out, it wasn't in pain, it was the ache of being seen. And when the coil lifted, leaving only silence once more, Dax knew it was done. "You're glowing," Valora whispered, stroking his face. "You always did that to me." She laughed softly, brushing her lips over his. "You are no longer just human. Then what am I? You're bonded to me forever." He rose with her, naked, marked, transformed. The bond shimmered like a second skin around them both, warmth and purpose wrapped in mutual surrender outside. The stars drifted past like ancient watchers. "We'll be hunted," he said. Double quotes, yes. "We'll be feared, good." He looked at her, his alien nurse, his lover, his anchor. "Then let them fear the human who carries your pleasure in his blood." Valora smiled with something darker, deeper. "And let them know my body, my milk, my soul, belong to only him." They kissed again, deep, slow, eternal, in the vast unknown. Two species had never joined like this before. This was more than alien nurse erotica, more than HFY Sci-Fi Erotica. This was a new kind of intergalactic love story, and it began with surrender.